Did you know there's a secret part of your brain that connects you to the fifth dimension? Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Katrina Jade. I am a holistic nutritionist. I also go by Jedi Jade, and on my channel I teach you how to unlock the force within you. Today's video is about a very fascinating but mysterious topic, the third eye, otherwise referred to as the pineal and pituitary glands in the brain, or the Christ oil, otherwise known as cerebrospinal fluid, or CSF. So what is the Christ oil? Well, the Christ oil is the sacred oil that flows up and down our spinal column every month while the moon is in our sun sign. This sacred fluid, as the essence of divine consciousness, bridges the gap between us and God. The journey that the oil takes up and down the spinal column every month is symbolic for the life that Christ lived, through his suffering, death, crucifixion, and resurrection. The crucifixion of Christ marks both physical and spiritual death and rebirth. In this process, the oil goes into a state of dormancy for 3 days, when the electromagnetic charge of the opposing feminine and masculine forces involved become neutralized. This is interesting, as Christ also spent 3 days in his tomb after his crucifixion, just as the oil spends 3 days in its tomb in our body. The cross, as a symbol of Jesus Christ's crucifixion, actually symbolizes the intersection of physical, earthly, and divine spiritual realms. The vertical axis is connected to spirituality, while the horizontal axis is connected to physicality. The cross symbolizes the bridging of both realms, symbolizing union with our Creator. You could look at our spine like the vertical axis of the cross, uniting us to the divine realm, while our nervous system and our veins and our skeletal structure is more like the physical representation of our connection to divine source energy. This process also symbolizes the dual nature of Christ, who embodied both perfection of man and God. The place where Christ was crucified is called Golgotha, which means place of the skull. Another one of the Gospels uses the word Calvary, which is another word that also means place of the skull. This is interesting because this is one of the locations that the Christ oil enters in one of its most significant phases of its whole entire renewal process. At the pineal and pituitary glands, this is the site of the Christ oil's potential activation, where dormant energy awaits to be triggered to rise up the spine and activate our higher consciousness. Jacob's ladder, talked about in the Old Testament, is also another symbolic representation of this journey that the Christ oil takes within us. It's also commonly referred to as the ladder of divine ascent. It's also very interesting that Christ was crucified at age 33, and we have 33 vertebrae in our spine. In the Bible, Jacob meets God face to face, and he names the place Peniel, meaning face of God, which is also very interesting considering how similar the word Peniel is to the word pineal. I can actually tell you firsthand that this is a real thing that Jacob really went through, because I went through it too. I also met God face to face at my pineal gland. And I remember the divine sacred force of my pineal gland during this time, and how it transformed my consciousness. God appeared to me as a glowing almond-shaped sideways eye, and he spoke to me during a meditation, and what he said was Shakti, shake the sun. It's interesting because up until this point of my spiritual awakening, I had never researched or even heard of Shakti. I had no idea who Shakti was. But actually, Shakti is the divine feminine. She represents creativity and the quantum field of infinite potential. God is actually bisexual, if you will. He is half woman, half man, fully woman and fully man. If you read the original version of the Old Testament from the Jewish Torah, you can see this spelled out plainly right in the book of Genesis. The sacrum, known as the sacred bone, is an integral part of this journey as well that the Christ oil takes up and down our spine. The sacrum is aligned with our root chakra. It's interesting that this is where the sacrum is. This is also the region in the human body where our reproductive organs are located. So if we can conceive human life there, why can't we also conceive the life of Christ? This reminds me of the Immaculate Conception of Mary. When Mary got pregnant with Christ, there was no father. But what if this was supposed to just symbolize the Immaculate Conception that every human being is capable of through activating the Christ oil? This is the area in the body where the Christ oil begins its production and creation, much like a human baby being born through the womb, which is actually a sacred divine portal to the divine realm. As the energy rises from the sacrum, or root chakra, it activates higher levels of consciousness on its way up, activating the movement of every chakra, getting each wheel flowing. The sacrum serves as the foundation for our physical and spiritual bodies, as well as this very sacred journey that the Christ oil takes. As we all know, on the third day after Christ's crucifixion, he rises again. And this is where we get the Easter holiday from, much like how the winter solstice represents the 3 days that he spent in his tomb. Looking into astrotheology and syncretism, we can see that there are lots of parallels between the way that nature works and the journey that Christ took. Or should I say, the journey that Christ takes. In the book of John, chapter 11, verse 25, Jesus reminds us, "I am the resurrection and the life." Just like the cross used to symbolize his resurrection, the crucifixion and resurrection of Christ actually does symbolize the intersection of spiritual and earthly realms. The Christ oil ascends through the body, uniting us to God. The pituitary gland symbolizes feminine or yin energy, while the pineal gland symbolizes masculine or yang energy. It's the harmonious interplay of these two opposing forces that helps us to activate and get the Christ oil ascending up the spine to activate our higher consciousness. Christ embodied the perfection of both man and God, showing us that we too have access to reaching this level of spiritual enlightenment and purity. If you are interested in awakening your third eye and rising your Christ oil up your spine, opening up all your chakras, I highly recommend doing a 3 to 5 day fast every month whenever the moon is in your sun sign. So if you were born August like me, I am a Leo. So whenever the moon goes into Leo, that is when I do my 3 to 5 day fast for the entirety of the time that the moon is in Leo, and this is when the Christ oil process begins and ends, has its full cycle. So definitely recommend doing that. It has worked out wonderful for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's wonderful to have you here. I love you so much. Mwah. God bless you and namaste.